You're with Dr. Nita Chhinzer, and today we're talking about workforce mobility programs and the impact this has on management. The number of people working outside of their country of birth is continuing to increase. According to the United Nations, there were over 281 million expats globally in 2020, representing 3.6% of the world's population. In addition, there's been a gradual increase to the number of female expats who have traditionally been underrepresented in the expat ranks. Some people use the term expats and nomads interchangeably, but they are distinct terms. An expat or an expatriate is someone who lives outside of their native country, usually for work, family, or retirement reasons. Expats often reside in their host country for longer periods and maintain a more static lifestyle compared to nomads. A nomad is typically someone who moves frequently, often for lifestyle or work reasons, without a permanent home or a long-term commitment to a specific location or employer. Often the intent here is to seek out new experiences. The number of global nomads has recently been increasing. In the United States, in 2019, roughly 7 million workers identified themselves as global nomads, but that number surged to 11 million in 2020 and again to 15.5 million in 2021. Some use the terms digital nomads, referring to office workers who could work remotely from anywhere. But nomads can also be non-office workers too, for example, someone who picks up gig work on an as-needed basis. There are multiple reasons for the surge in global mobility. One is that companies are increasingly establishing remote work policies, allowing for access to talent internationally. Second is countries are luring workers with digital nomad visas and extended stays. The third is that families are more flexible to these kinds of lifestyles now, and that includes things like homeschooling or a spouse working remotely, or even access to virtual learning for children. The fourth is the development of products and services to support a globally mobile workforce, including co-living workspaces and online job sites. And the fifth is people are shifting their priorities away from material possessions to experiences, and those who establish these types of lifestyles largely fall in line with that ideology. How does this impact Canadian employers? To a large extent, companies operating only within Canada's boundaries have the luxury of dealing with a relatively limited number of economic, cultural, and legal variables. However, a company that operates with multiple units abroad doesn't operate in an environment with homogeneity in respect to human resource management, and labor force mobility programs challenge that more. For example, minimum legal mandated holidays may range, varying from none in certain areas to up to 6 weeks in France. In addition, country-specific regulations affect employees. In Denmark and Norway, employee representatives are required on the board of directors. In Japan, an employer can require an annual medical examination from employees. In South Africa, low-income earners have additional rights, for example, an automatic right to overtime pay, while executives are not entitled to certain labor law protections. With high levels of labor force mobility, there's also a need for tightened security and awareness training for employees sent to countries with increased risks. There are also intercountry variations in culture, economic systems, and legal systems that complicate the task of selecting, training, and managing employees abroad. These variations result in corresponding differences that make the job of an expat manager or a nomad manager more complex and difficult than when the individual is working in their domestic country. Training the managers on how to deal with these complex issues is a core function of the leadership team, organizational strategy, and human resource department. Societies also have differences in power. For example, the amount of power that is distributed between the manager and the employee. There is an institutionalization of higher power differences in some countries, such as Mexico and Japan, with a presumption of lower power distance between the manager and the employee in places like Sweden and the Netherlands. Legally, complexities also arise in regards to not only the minimum terms and conditions of work, but also the power imbalance. For example, in many European countries, work councils, which are formal employee-elected groups of worker representatives, facilitate communication and consultation between management and employees on transnational issues affecting the company's operations across Europe. Another example is co-determination, which is the rule in Germany and in several other countries. Co-determination means that workers share control of the firm with shareholders, and workers have the right to have their own elected representatives on the employer's supervisory board. In addition, differences in economic systems among countries also translates into how intercountry differences affect HR practices, especially when it comes to labor force mobility programs. For example, in free enterprise systems, the need for efficiency tends to favor HR policies that value productivity, efficient workers, and staffing cuts when the market forces dictate so. Moving along the scale towards more socialist system, HR practices tend to shift towards preventing unemployment, even at the expense of sacrificing efficiency. In planned economies, such as North Korea, the government decides and plans what to produce and the price to sell at. In mixed economies, such as China, many companies are still state-owned, while others make decisions based on market demand. A more informed review of human resource management practices can help make decisions regarding benefits, training, turnover, as well as recruitment and performance management of members who are involved with labor force mobility programs.